Hello, listener land. This is John Saltas, looking for Ron Yengich. I'll find him in a minute. And this is the Bingham Boys podcast. I'm sitting up to my right is a fellow named John West. He's an immigration defense attorney. He's going to be talking to us about all the topical stuff that goes along with immigration these days, and there's a whole bunch to go on there. But we'll be talking about, as usual, Bingham. We're going to Greek word of the week. Tell you what that is in a minute. We're going to learn some Spanish words. We'll talk about Bad Bunny because he's not so bad after all. The Olympics, free speech, and I got to find Ron. Ron, you're there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm John. I'm a little late. I'm running late. I've been actually to the ICE complex because I went out there this morning with a young man named Bob who I was helping.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about Bob.
And also, I stopped at Presto Print, owned by a good Bingham man,
it's Joe Varanakis.
Joe Varanakis, a Greek.
Well, he started. I don't know if Joe's still there. I believe Matt, his son, is.
His son runs it. Joe comes in every once in a while, and when I asked Matt what Joe does, and he says basically whatever he wants, and then we're happy when he leaves.
You know who his buddies are, right? Joe graduated from Bingham High School, I believe, in 1965.
Okay, so with Brentel and Miller.
So, well, yeah, and when you see them as a trio quite often, Joe Varanakis, Danny Brentel, and Joe Miller, as pals. You know, they still have that friendship today. I mean, think of it. That's criminy. What are they on their 114th class reunion right now?
Yeah,
1965.
65. Yeah, that was my brother's class at Jordan, but. So they're my brother's 4 years older.
We're not good at math, are we?
No, I'm not. So I mean, they'd be 80.
Your 60-year reunion.
Yeah, they're
60
80
years.
I don't know that Brentel ever went to class.
Well, driver's ed. The two of Joe and Dan did driver's ed together, and you know the story a little bit. One of the two of them, their girlfriend broke up with the other one. One of the two lost their girlfriend, so they started crying, and and then on the radio comes that song, Fighting Soldiers from the Sky.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Fearless men who jump and die, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they're at the Green Beret recruiting office. And they sign up under the buddy system.
Oh, God.
And, we'll take care of young men like you. You'll forget those girls in no time. We just go up and send you overseas. And they sent them to Panama, I think, in the buddy system they signed up with. They'd be buddies forever and serve together. And then they split them up. In something like that. Then they put them together again. I don't know. I'm loose on the story, but they did serve in the same Green Beret encampment, in which those guys would go out and be with indigenous peoples and rehabilitate. That was the Green Beret had a different role,
right?
And they anyways, Dan and Joe. I just chuckle I can't help but laugh every time I say their name.
Well, whenever I think of Brentel, I mean, I've said it on the radio. I love Danny. He's a great guy, and Miller too. I mean, they're both really good men, but. Brentel was just so full of everything that to meet him is to love him, but it's also to shake your head when you're done talking to him.
He's from your neck of the woods in Italy.
Yeah, I know his mom.
He's Northern Italian.
Yeah, they're Northern Italian, good people, and they're great guys. So I didn't know the story about
Joe Harriman. Joe's a Harriman kid. Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, one of them was forlorn. God, how do we solve that? Buy a case of beer at the age of 18 or 19, and then go to the Army recruitment, and then say, I think they told him the best way to stay as buddies, stay together, was to become Green Berets.
Yeah,
I think that was it.
Maybe so. Well, all right.
Anyway. Well, they honored those guys because they're great guys.
I mean, my estimation of my old boss, Joe Varanakis, has gone down a little bit after the story.
Yeah, you think he'd walk away from that situation, but he didn't. He stuck with them, and...
That's hilarious. So anyway, that's where I am, and now I'm here. I've been talking on the cell phone as I walked in, and I want to talk a little bit. I want to introduce everybody to John West. And John, tell us a little bit about yourself. I will say off the top that I'm prejudiced just initially because I know John is a lawyer and know he's a really, really good lawyer. He works for a very good law firm, excellent law firm, and when I retired, my law partner Earl Zeiss went to office with them because he went to Hillcrest High with Adam Craik's mom and dad, and so they gave him a free seat if he helped out a little bit and advised, and they also got our secretary, which was the player to be named later, Merlene Wright, who is without doubt the world's greatest secretary. And yes, I refer to her as that. She's an assistant and a paralegal, but just a great person. So John starts out high, but we're going to get to this. John represented an individual that I know that I referred to him. He'll tell you a little bit about why he had to represent him. And he and that firm did a fantastic job in representation. And we're going to make parallels today between that case and the case of the man and the little boy that were arrested in Minneapolis. And John's going to explain from the deep position of someone who's been involved with Homeland Security, among other things. His vita is just stunning.
Can I interject? I've seen a couple.
Yeah.
I've never seen one 3 pages long and fully validated. I was like, what hasn't this fellow done? I had just met you minutes ago, but I had the vita yesterday. It's incredible.
No, it is incredible, and the only bad mark on it is he went to BYU. But here's the deal: we can use him to show the disparity from somebody that graduated from Brigham Young University Law School and our senior senator who did the same. Yeah. And how you can go down different paths.
Right.
And
I've said that before because I have a rough lineage to Orrin Hatch in terms of blood relation on my Mormon side. And, that I have to probably say 25% of me and rah, but it proves there's no hope in genetic programming because we shared the same DNA.
No.
And look at, you got two different routes out of it. One clean stream, one dirty stream of the same strand.
There you go. I mean, well, that always stands. It gives us hope. It gives us hope.
Yeah, and that's actually the bottom line. We're optimists.
So we'll talk a little bit about Bob's case, and Bob obviously is a pseudonym. And it's sad that we have to do that because we should be able to talk about him up front in the sense that we wouldn't have to be afraid, but we're afraid because we don't know whether ICE picks up on this and decides that they're going to double down on what they did earlier. So we'll talk about that, but let's talk a little bit first about you. So you tell us about your undergraduate degree and where you're from originally.
Great, yeah, and thank you for the wonderful introduction and for having me here. I born and raised Sugar House, Utah. Highland High School, go Rams. Went to the University of Utah for my undergrad. Turncoat to BYU for law school. So, BYU or law school doesn't do a ton, I feel like, to change one's loyalties when it comes to football, when it comes to school spirit, because you're just nosing books all day long.
Right.
But I did have a wonderful experience at BYU Law and had met some really great people and really great friends. After that, clerked with the immigration court and for the judges that were there at the time between 2014 and 16. Then worked for OPLA, which is the Office for the Principal Legal Advisor, which are the lawyers for ICE. Okay. Did that for about 8 years and then moved over to immigration defense with Adam Crayk in his office.
So you've actually been on, in a sense, the other side of the legal spectrum from what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
Which, for those of you that are out there, that's not unusual at all. I mean, a lot of people that are prosecutors become defense attorneys, become prosecutors, or work for prosecuting agencies or the government outside of being a federal defender or a state public defender. How was it that you decided to make the transition?
It'd been something that I was thinking about for a long time. I had spoken with Adam Crayk about it a few times, and he had said, well, whenever you're ready to come over, and it was going to happen sooner or later. It was going to happen eventually. And so I just decided kind of with the new administration coming in, it was a good time to jump over and dust off my Spanish a little bit. I did a Spanish speaking mission, so I'm fluent in Spanish. And
I got some Spanish words to ask of you today.
All right,
we'll do that.
Well, yeah.
I've got
a few listed down.
All right, good. We do a Greek word of the day,
Great.
Which John generally comes up with. Maybe sometimes I do.
We'll wait to.
But we'll wait to do that. And so when you worked for Homeland Security, you worked at least in the office that would advise the immigration judges, or just the immigration lawyers themselves?
Initially, the judges. So I was a law clerk for the immigration judges from 14 to 16, and that was where we would do legal research and writing, brief the judges on legal issues, complex legal issues, write their decisions or orders sometimes, and of course under their supervision, issue those orders in immigration court.
One of the things about doing that is that you probably, an old lawyer once told me when I graduated from law school, I went to work at Legal Defenders. This guy had been practicing forever. He said to me, leaving law school, because I had been a law clerk at LDA, you're going to know more law than you will ever know in your career. Right now, you've taken the bar, you've gone through all that stuff, you've had 3 intensive years of law training in law school, and you're going to know more law, which is to say substantive law and procedure. You're going to then focus on something, and you're going to lose all of that. And I thought, well, crap, but it's actually true. So when you're there, you're advising judges because you are the ripe tree that is bringing the fruit to them when they need it. Did you like that?
I loved it. It was a 2-year program. I probably would have stayed several more years if that were even a possibility. But it was a 2-year program, no more, no less. You find something after that. And it happened that the prosecutor's office, OPLA, for ICE, had a spot open just as I was leaving, kind of serendipitously, moved across the hall and worked with them.
One of the things that I found out in my trip, taking Bob out there to check in, because he was afraid, and again, you're going to talk a little bit about that case, but was that everything's in the same building. And I didn't really realize that. I'd been to Homeland Security before because I had to go. A client of mine was debriefed out there one time by Homeland Security in a big drug case I had. We had to go out and get evidence sometime. We had to do that. So I'd been there before, but I hadn't noticed that, everything that was there at the time. So let's go to where we are now relative to immigration law. Immigration, the control of immigration under our Constitution falls in the First Amendment, and Congress makes the laws and provides also funds immigration. That goes back to the original Constitution that we had, which is a little bit different from the Articles of Confederation, where states regulated immigration. So it's their job to set the standards. How is it then that we see, I think this is a question that a lot of people have. If that's the case, and they fund everything, and there's a fight in Congress now about funding ICE as it now exists, how is it that the Trump administration has been able to set things in motion relative to the prosecution of illegal aliens and to make detention centers and make Alligator Alley and stuff like that without the supervision of Congress?
That's a good question, a good point, because Congress kind of draws the bounds within which the executive branch can operate and execute the laws, right, and enforce the laws. And so with the Big Beautiful Bill that was recently passed, just a ton of money was sent to ICE for immigration enforcement, both on the detention side. I want to say it was $45 billion plus. And then the rest of it, I think, totaled around, $76 billion. I correct my numbers there, fact check me there, but an incredible amount of money that hasn't been seen beforehand. Now, the problem we see with immigration law in general is that the law is relatively strict, and it hasn't been enforced to the full extent for a long time because of resources. So now we shove a ton of resources into the executive department that enforces immigration law, and they can, within the bounds, or they should within the bounds, of what the Immigration Nationality Act has already prescribed, enforce immigration laws. So
they do that on the basis of not statutes per se, but codified regulations, right?
It is statutes and regs. Okay. So the INA is Title 8 of the U.S. Code, and it's the Immigration Nationality Act. Okay. And so there are codified immigration laws. They are relatively strict. The problem is we've gone decades without enforcing some rules or laws certain ways, and now like flipping a light switch. They want to just go grab everyone and say, well, pursuant to this statute, pursuant to this code, pursuant to this regulation, and just go after everyone and create this ambiance of fear so that people will just deport themselves.
Okay, is that a big part of the reason that what is happening now, in your opinion, is happening?
Absolutely.
The fear factor.
100%. It's their biggest tool, in my opinion.
And one of the other things, when we talk about laws and regulations, Congress passes statutes, and then the executive branch promulgates Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, as lawyers know it, and they're able to make them. But, true or not, everything it operates under the umbrella of the Fifth Amendment due process. Correct. And also equal protection under the 14th Amendment and those type of things, correct?
Absolutely.
All right, so as you sit here now, and you've been a prosecutor, you've been a judge's clerk, you've, in a sense, both sides of the aisle and the judge, what do you see the problems as an immigration defense attorney? Now, you also do some criminal work.
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly immigration right now. The firm can't even spare me for criminal right now. I want to get more into that, but as you can imagine, immigration is pounding down our door. Not ICE, the people who need our help with immigration.
And so we're clear, Crayk and Stowell have offices here in Salt Lake. You have one in Ogden. And you had one, I think, in St. George. Do you still have one in St. George?
I think we're looking to open one, or at least do some office sharing so that we can send an attorney or two down and handle cases down there. Okay,
so now you're a defense attorney and you see what's happening. As a general proposition, then we'll get specific. What do you think about it? What do you think about it as a lawyer, as a former member of Homeland Security, and as an American citizen about what's been going on?
You know, my biggest complaint, even when I was with Department of Homeland Security, is that the judges, the immigration courts, are also under the executive branch. And so the checks that you normally see from a judiciary checking the enforcers doesn't really happen, and the pendulum swings greatly from administration to administration. So when I worked for the administration, I started under President Obama, then President President Trump, President Biden, and then I left just after President Trump's second term. So the rules, the policies, the budget, the way that things get enforced, and the way that the law is interpreted changes, and that's a problem. The immigration courts,
is that with the same people in the same positions? They're just, or they do a clean house and then bring in people who agree with them. Which is it?
Up to a certain level, all of us kind of just the cogs. We stay, we remain. But anyone, the cabinet level positions and anyone just below them, they get cleaned out. They get cleaned out each time an administration swaps.
Now that we're swinging they're swinging the pendulum.
Absolutely.
Right? They're the gravity on this thing.
Yep. And what we're dealing with is that the immigration judges are beholden to their bosses, and their bosses work for Trump.
So one of the things that I think people don't understand is, because we have this not only in immigration enforcement, we have it in other types of enforcement. For example, the driver's license division. There are judges that are administrative law judges that work in the driver's license. One of the constant complaints about defense attorneys is to see how there used to be when you would have driver's license hearings. First off, they started out just being with judges which were district court judges, and it overwhelmed them, and so they came up with an administrative process. Now it is a total rubber stamp for the Department of Motor Vehicles, and the people that are there, they may be good people, but there are no real defenses anymore because they've eliminated them all. So if you have want to argue something, it simply is a rubber stamp, and then you have to appeal it to the district court. It's a real problem, and it's something that happens when you have administrative frameworks where the judiciary isn't independent, that it is appointed by the executive branch. John?
Well, I heard you say something. You said the judges are answering, they have a boss?
Yes.
And I've always been of the thought that judges are immune from bosses, if you will, because they get lifetime positions or they whatever.
That's why.
Am I just delusional about it?
Yeah, you are a little bit delusional, but most people think that. That's why I gave the example of the driver's license.
I get it, because I'd never heard it stated so like, Yeah, well, new boss and new sheriff in town really has meaning now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's.
But then what's the point of having a judge?
Well, the presumption is, and you correct me if I'm wrong. The presumption is that they will still act with integrity, and that they will still do their job. And that isn't a problem. That is a consistent problem in administrative law.
Yeah.
Now, but to say there are other administrative courts that work very effectively under the same position. For example, there are some places where child welfare cases, as they're called, a lot of places, are handled administratively totally. But those judges, although they work for whatever department is, the Department of Welfare, or what do we call it in Utah?
DCFS?
Yeah, DCFS, Department of Child and Family Safety. Those are people that the history has been that they are completely independent, and a lot of them work closely with juvenile court, where in our juvenile court it is a great court because the rights of the kids that go there are really looked after. So it can work, but it can't work effectively if there is overwhelming political pressure, right?
Correct, and your point is well taken, John. The federal judges, the Article 3 judges, so Article 1 legislative, Article 2 executive, and Article 3 judiciary, 3 branches of government. The Article 3 judges are very insulated from political nonsense. Very insulated from, they get appointed by a judge, sure, but it's a lifetime appointment, and they are tasked with being legal academics who are committed to the interpretation of the law.
Independent of the executive branch.
Exactly.
You said they were appointed by judge, and I know that was just a misstatement. They're appointed by the executive branch
Exactly.
and confirmed. Again, a problem we have in Utah right now. Governor Cox and the cowboys up at the legislature have decided that our Supreme Court, the Utah Supreme Court, and by the way, once again, shout out to our state, our Supreme Court has historically been known as a very good Supreme Court. Going back to the original days, some really great judges have sat on that bench. We've had periods where it's been a little bit questionable, but generally, Republican and Democratic governors have appointed good people to the Supreme Court, and they have exercised great independence from both the legislative and the executive branch. Since Cox and the legislature particularly are not happy with some of their rulings lately, they want to expand the court, and so they can add more political appointments to it. So it's a fear. And so when we get to these judges that are on the payroll of Homeland Security, what was your experience? Did they try to exercise their independent judgment?
So they're actually part of the Department of Justice.
Oh,
so they
sorry.
did, and they used to all be together under the Department of Justice. That's when it was INS, if you
Okay.
recall.
Yeah.
Immigration Naturalization Services. Around 2001, 2002, Department of Homeland Security was created, kind of in the wake of 9/11, but also that was their effort to make it look like the immigration judges are indeed separate from and apart and insulated from the enforcers, who are ICE and the ICE prosecutors.
Okay.
However, the Department of Justice, under Pam Bondi, and the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, are both cabinet positions, so the heads of those, and report directly to the president, right? And that's the case in any administration.
So with Biden, it was the same way.
Yep.
Whoever was the attorney general and whoever was the head.
And I will say this, Judge, we have 2 immigration judges currently of the 5 that we had a year ago. Judge Anderson and Judge Greer are both excellent judges who, in my experience on both sides of the aisle, make very reasoned decisions and have not fallen prey to as much as a judge could, to the political nonsense that comes from above them. Now, that being said, they are still beholden to memoranda, policies, and rules and requirements that we're not even privy to. It's an email a week, it's a memorandum a week of, you must do this on certain cases, you must do this on certain cases. So they're still getting very strict guidance and have to balance that with their interpretation of the law and try to make the best decision and also not get fired.
Okay. John?
Well, that's just kind of stunning to me, because I always figured, okay, that you have a judge sitting there and you weigh one side and John weighs the other side, and the judge looks at the same set of facts, same rules, same laws, and comes to a decision.
That's how it's supposed to be.
But it's not, is it? What you just said is that
Yeah. No, I think that
the judge is actually, depending on the administration, setting the teeter is tottering depending on who's there, and now he's not looking at certain things, or he's looking at other pieces more in detail than he would if he was truly impartial. And now you have, I didn't know how they stacked the judgeships until just now, frankly, but I kept on thinking it can't be true, because judges are independent.
Yeah,
I mean, I can understand they'd be bought off. Take Clarence Thomas, whatever, Scalia. Yeah. But I never thought that the local level guys would ever succumb to that.
Well, I think that there's a reality of this too that you mentioned at the beginning. Administration after administration started talking about we had to fix the immigration law. We've been talking about that in this country for at least the last 5 presidential elections, really before that. And no comprehensive immigration bill has come through. And it isn't the fault of one party, it's the fault of all of them. It is a difficult circumstance. And the circumstance is difficult because, whether we want to believe it or not, we need immigrants to easily come here to do work that there aren't enough people for. And both sides know that, so it was a great talking point. It was great to yell about it and all of that stuff. But nobody wanted to deal with it because you had, even in the past, the John Birch Society, for example, and others on the other side screaming, it's working, leave it alone. And also, there was a sense of discretion. We talked about this with Craig Watson last week. Individual officers always have discretion about who they're going to drag into court and who they're going to arrest. And many of them did that on the basis of what they understood to be fair, okay? As I understand it, that discretion has been limited greatly under Trump and those people. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. One of the more overt examples of that is recently the Department of Homeland Security decided that anyone who comes into the United States unlawfully, anyone who's entered without coming in on a visa, for example, is not releasable if they decide to detain them. That's been the huge fight that we've had for the last several months.
They're already criminals by virtue of the fact they came over the line, right?
And it's more just a reading of the statute that says, oh wait, this says mandatory detention. Now we obviously disagree with that, but the judges were told in no uncertain terms, to our understanding, you must agree with DHS on this. And so now we have a nationwide blanket of judges saying, okay, even pursuant to this federal court habeas order that was a class action, sorry, we can't do anything about it. Our hands are tied. And when you have judges saying our hands are tied because of a memo, a policy, a higher level supervisor in the Department of Justice, it's problematic. It's huge time problematic, and we have had to resort to filing everything in federal district court.
Okay, so let's go there procedurally, and so you go to an immigration judge, and you have a client that's arrested. Okay, and let's go to Bob. Let's go to Bob now. As I understand, Bob came in. He was just a little bit over than being a juvenile, or maybe a juvenile, whatever the case is. Comes from a country south of Mexico, comes alone, comes into the country. He doesn't have a visa. He is seeking asylum because he doesn't have family really that he can depend on in Colombia. We know it's well known what the problems in Colombia are with the cartels and so on. He comes here, and then he hires, not a lawyer, you might want to talk a little bit about this, some people that hold themselves out to be legally trained who help him fill out his papers because he wants to proceed the right way so he can become an American citizen. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So he's doing that. And although he didn't have a lawyer at the time, he's filed the papers and he's proceeding through the process. Now pick it up from there.
Yeah, so what he filed for was a special immigrant juvenile visa petition. So he came under the age of 21, which qualifies him for that, if he can get state court orders in a juvenile court, state court, that he is a ward of the state or should be a ward of the state because of abandonment, abuse, or neglect of a parent.
And so everybody understands, and this is whatever, you're a juvenile, and and you are arrested in the state of Utah, or you're picked up because you were on the streets or whatever, you are now, and I'm using the broad term, you may come from New York, but at that point, you are under the parens patrie, as we lawyers and like to say in Latin, the parenthood of the state for us to protect you.
Yep.
And so we're not even going to let anything happen to you, meaning the state of Utah, until we determine by judicial directive what's going to happen with you. Now, if there's another order in another state, they'll consider that, and they will, by the full faith and credit clause, have to abide by some of it. But we're going to make sure you're okay. That's why the juvenile court order is correct, right?
Exactly.
Because you're here, even if you're here not legally according to ICE, you're here because it's under our direction now. And again, I'm going to say this about the Utah juvenile court justice system. It is a great system. The judges are generally great. They've worked in the system. They understand the system. And so what happens? Does he have such an order?
They have been wonderful to work with. The juvenile court judges care about these juveniles. They don't care that maybe they were born in another country. They look at the facts and see that there is a need here, and they are granting these petitions when appropriate. His petition was granted, to the credit of the preparer who was an attorney, but he had that petition granted. Now, what comes next is you then file for a special immigrant juvenile visa with USCIS. That's United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. They're kind of the other arm of ICE, or of DHS that, not ICE, sorry, they're the other arm of DHS that provides the immigration benefits. That's where you apply for citizenship. That's where you apply for a green card. That's where you apply for a work permit. That's where you apply for anything while you're not in immigration custody or immigration proceedings, like deportation or removal proceedings. So he makes that filing and gets a receipt notice. They've received it. Everything's great. However, because Congress has not made a substantial reform or change to immigration laws in 30 years, there's a yearly cap on the visa for these special immigrant juvenile visas and many other types of visas. It will be about 5 or 6 years, maybe 4 to 6 years before that visa is current. Once that visa is current, he can then benefit from it.
So he's done what he's supposed to do. This is what really pisses me off, amongst other things. They funded ICE with billions of dollars. We're 3 judges down in the immigration court in Salt Lake. They don't have anybody to fill those slots. They've underfunded it because they can use a hell of a lot more than 5 judges here and a lot of other places. And they haven't funded the other people that they need to process visas that are legitimately sought and have been approved to a certain degree, so people can move through the line. And so they're in a holding pattern. It's like they're circling the state of Utah in a holding pattern, even though they've done everything right.
I will say, if due process were the goal, there would be more judges, not prosecutors. There'd be more judges, not officers.
Okay.
Right. So what you always hear is, well, gosh, there's 3 million of them. We can't due process all of them. We got to, just hope that we catch most of the bad guys.
Which is one of the scariest things to hear.
I hate hearing that. It's
attorney.
the worst thing that can be said. Gosh, I don't know better that one innocent man.
One innocent man be.
One
guilty.
It
is worse for one innocent man to be found guilty than 100 to be found not guilty.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's what's happening.
Wrongfully.
We just want it wrongfully. And so, John, what other people are seeing right now are old ICE and a new ICE. ICE has been around how long?
ICE under Department of Homeland Security since 2002. Before that, I couldn't even
just
tell
say
you.
from certainly in our past 10-year memory,
Right?
And it was certainly the case in the past 3 administrations: Obama, Trump, Biden, and Trump again. ICE was there, and as I understand it, the deportations under Obama and Biden far exceeded anything that took place with Bush and or Trump. Right. So what happened then? Because that seems on the surface to say it's working.
Right.
And they were doing it without, unless you guys know something I don't know, they were doing it without shooting people. And then there were deaths. There were like 50 or something in 8 years of Obama.
Right.
versus
Yeah.
32 or 34 last year. So what happened? What's the change? Why all this angst? And I got to know one thing: why the masks?
Yeah. The answer to that, simply enough, is optics, right? Under President Obama, immigration laws were enforced heavily. And the system marched.
He was protested against for exactly
Right.
that.
Yep.
Even with people in his own party.
Yep. But then immigration became the main campaign argument, the main thing that people wanted to argue about when Trump sought to be elected for the first term. And so then, once he got elected, he took to the White House podium often saying things like calling them rapists and murderers, and saying things like we need to build a wall, and it was very much exclusionary talk. It was racist undertones, it was exclusionary talk, it was we're no longer just enforcing the law, we are othering large portions of the populace and getting rid of them. And so then it became a discussion about who are they, should they be here, and a lot more racist undertones, which, every country has immigration laws.
Sure.
Every country enforces to a certain degree those immigration laws, but it has become just, and the mean-spiritedness with which they're doing that during this administration is disheartening.
So one of the things is when you say that every country has it, in my grandparents' home country of Italy has generally been very welcoming to immigrants until the last 15 years. And there are a lot of people that protest it, very conservative Italian politicians. Berlusconi was one of them. I really believe that Donald Trump took not only stuff from Cohn, but he looked at Berlusconi's playbook about how Berlusconi got elected and the stuff he did and his ability to lie to the people and people to accept it and so on and so forth. But there became a problem, and it was truly a racial problem, a racial profiling problem with people complaining that were politicians about the numbers of black people that were coming from Somalia, other places, because they were avoiding war, and they were coming and still are coming in ships, landing in Lampedusa. For those of you who know anything about Italian literature, the great book, which the name escapes me right now. It's coming out as a series actually this year. That was written about southern Italy, but and come to that area and come to Sicily, and people reacted very negatively to it, and that was used as a focal point for elections in Italy over the last 20 years. I think Trump and his people picked up on that, and they're inveterate racists anyway. But I think that's part of what's happened. So it does happen elsewhere. But here's my question after that little speech. So in a sense, they've also told everybody in arresting people that everything had a Tory. If they are not here, straight down, they haven't played everything straight down the fairway, and the fairway's been open so you can play it. It doesn't matter, meaning you have your way to get your visa, and you're just in line. We're still going to arrest everybody. And now we'll go back to Bob.
So, yes, Bob had done everything he needed to do, was just in a waiting pattern. In fact, he had recently gotten his receipt notice and the approval notice that shows that his SIJ visa petition was approved. So he got it approved from USCIS. That is the Department of Homeland Security saying, you've done what you need to do. The Utah Juvenile Court has found you to be a ward of the state. We will now put you in line for this visa. And he was excitedly going to immigration court to show the judge, hey, I have this approval. Now, I have access now, because I've entered my appearance as his attorney with the immigration courts, to the recorded files. And the immigration judge proposed administrative closure, which basically is, we'll close down your case, take you off the docket, cease any removal attempts to legally obtain a removal order while we just wait out see how this plays out.
Just stay in line.
Yep, you've got no criminal history. You don't even have a parking ticket. You're a very well-spoken, well-articulated, respectful human, and there's no reason to have you consistently coming back to immigration court. The judge proposed that, and the prosecutor said no. The judge said, okay, why not? And the prosecutor said, well, we'd like to dismiss removal proceedings, which sounds great. In criminal court, you get your case dismissed. Great.
Yeah.
In immigration court, for prosecutorial discretion, usually when a liberal administration is in control, they close down cases or dismiss cases just to help with resources. And then he says, because we want to proceed with expedited removal, basically a lower due process type of, you don't get a choice to see it, you don't get an option to see a judge. We're just going to process you over here ourselves.
Which was generally used for people that had criminal histories, wasn't it?
It's for those who are in the attempt of crossing the border. So
Okay.
it's a temporal thing more than anything, where it's you are caught in the desert, by Laredo, Texas, having just crossed the border less than 24 hours ago. We'll just process you as an expedited removal.
I see it. I mean, on the legal basis, I'm hearing that. I'm just out front on the street. What a guy would say, well, they're just fishing where the fish are. So, I'm meaning agents. And that's not very good to just hang around a court and haul people away.
Well, that's where we're going to get.
And that is the scary part of all of this. So expedited removal was created, and it's statutorily created. Congress agreed to give the Department of Homeland Security extra powers to just administratively proceed with these guys, so we don't send them to immigration courts. And that is when they're close to the border geographically and have crossed recently temporally. Bob, almost forgot about the nickname, Bob had been here for 2.5 years already. So that clearly didn't apply to him. There is in the code, you have to have been here for fewer than 2 years for expedited removal to even apply to you. So he shows the judge gives him an opportunity to respond. And I don't know how Bob had the wherewithal, without being a legally trained person, to object. Because dismissal sounds good, but he did hear expedited removal. That does sound scary. He objected to expedited removal, objected to the dismissal, but didn't have any legal reasoning to back it up. The judge granted dismissal, and he left the courtroom. He went down the elevator, and the elevator opened up, and he walked into the arms of multiple ICE officers and handcuffs, and was taken into immigration custody in the building where the immigration court holds hearings. Very scary.
That makes you proud to be an American. Huh?
Well, it's sort of like, hey, I'm going to go see my kids tonight. And, there's that, I think it was an old phrase in the 60s. Hey, Daddy, what'd you do in the war? And they talk about their children, like in Britain. Yeah. Tell me what you did in the war, Daddy. And then, because everybody's daddy was a hero, right? Well, how do these guys talk to their children about the heroics of something like that? I mean, hi, kids. This is what I did today. I got a band of my brothers and sisters together. We all masked up in big uniforms and got our guns out. And this little guy, with every legal precedent, stepped out of the elevator, and he wasn't doing a damn thing wrong. And we just
took him
away. Hadn't. Yeah, and when we arrested him, and aren't you proud? Doesn't that bowl of Cheerios taste better to you now, Sonny?
Well,
when I listened to the. I was upset.
Where's decency?
I was upset about this before listening to the audio recording. Listening to the audio recording, Bob was well-spoken, soft-spoken, confused, and scared. He was very scared. And I can't imagine what was going through his head. As a ward of the state of Utah, findings by a juvenile court judge that he's been abandoned, abused, or neglected by his parents from his home country in South America, and he walks out of a courtroom and into handcuffs. It's not to mention the chilling effect. It makes me very, very scared, sad, and angry for what he's gone through.
I'm still waiting for ICE to put their percentages a little bit better. Like in baseball, you become a millionaire if you hit the ball 1 out of every 3 times in fair territory, resoundingly beyond millions. ICE is like 15% of hardened criminals, of the people that they've arrested this past year. Remember, we're going to go after the worst of the worst. That was the quote. We're going to get these criminals off the street because they're doing fentanyl, raping women, killing whole families at the same time, and don't you feel bad about that? And now that after a year of roundups, around 14% maybe have a criminal record, not even going to the whatever ones are violently criminal, even lower percentage. So they're missing the mark, and they're doing this great big drama show of getting people terrorized and get them off the street. What did they do with the other 85% of those people? They're the Bobs. They're the ones that just got back.
Well, I'll tell you what happened with Bob. Bob was able to get a phone call to his roommate and tell his roommate what happened and his girlfriend. And then they went blank. It went blank for about 20 hours. And the next time anybody heard from Bob was in Evanston, Wyoming, in custody up there. And from there, Bob went to Las Vegas and San Diego. And fortunately...
What's the timeline?
Well, it's
days, months, weeks?
Well,
days.
Yeah,
days, but constant traveling. 12 hours a day, shackled, handcuffs, and ankle shackles tied together for, I talked to Bob afterwards, for more than 12 hours at a time on planes, being shipped from here to there to here to there while they try and figure out a good place for him.
And it's done on purpose, I think, to do that. Now, our listeners, and we have some that are conservative, and we love you, but this is something you wouldn't do to a dog. And then when they do land, he told me this. They're put in a van. There was a van. We were standing outside waiting to get in. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And a van went by, and he nudged me, and he said, see that van? They had 17 of us in a van like this. This is a small van in that, all shackled together with our feet shackled together. And no one would tell us where we were going. No one would tell us what was happening. And then they took us. And then when they finally got us to a place, there were over 70 people in a small area with a toilet in the middle.
Ideal hygiene.
A toilet in the middle. And then, for to eat that day, he got some bread and a piece of cheese, and that's what he ate.
Well,
and they had to ask for water because there wasn't a water fountain. So here's what I want to say. So America, you should really be proud of that. We really should be proud that that's how we're treating people, particularly those that are trying to comply with the law down the line. We can really be proud of that. So all of you who know somebody who's a real tough Trumpite out there, ask them how they would have felt about that if that was their neighbor or somebody, or if it was their kid.
Well, they're making it easier because I think it was yesterday or the day before, they rounded up a whole bunch of people somewhere in rural Idaho. Same deal. They got nothing but good guys, hauled them all away in an area where the kids and the families that were taken away were like adored, if you will, or workers on the farms.
Yeah.
And now it's striking a little bit closer to those kind of people that look at the big cities, the big blue awful cities. It happened in Idaho too. It'll happen here in Utah. This Bob's case is a Utah case. There's no escaping it.
No, in Montana, there's a thing that was on
these are our friends and neighbors.
In Montana, they took a man who had a business there and had been there for a long time. Everybody knew him. Everybody loved him. A small town in northern Montana, close to the Canadian border. They came and arrested him. They took him, and they transported him 400 miles across the state to have his hearing. The people of that town, like a couple dozen of them, got in cars and went there to testify.
Good. You know what it's sort of like is this isn't a great analogy, but the Epstein files are protecting certain people, the rich, the wealthy, and all that kind of stuff. And the same thing's happening. They're just picking up they're victimizing people who shouldn't be victimized. They're leaving the bad people on the street, and they're ignoring a whole class of people who are criminally and touching these so-called hardened criminals. But by virtue of being born here, and being born of a certain complexion here, and being born into a certain status here, an economic structure here, they're absolved of all of that, even though they're doing business with them. You know what I mean?
I know.
Who's you take away the white benefactor, it's not just white guys, but if you take away that class of people who are administratively getting people out of trouble, financing this trade. It's not happening because of these evil cartels just going around. They've got people higher above them that help them be protected, and it's not the president of Colombia that's doing it.
No,
he got like Venezuela. He's in a jail somewhere. It's some other guy, and it's one of our guys.
the old
An American guy's what I'm saying, Ron.
Yeah, I know. It's I mean but you make a point that I want to bring up, and as someone whose skin is a lot lighter than other people, I do get tired of it's only white guys. Okay, the guy that was born in Puerto Rico that threatened to erase a guy because he raised his voice. Yeah. Doesn't have skin that are. I mean, it is people that are in power. Okay,
that's the right way to put it. But you know what? Temperaments are subject to the point now. Because it's being pushed down a little bit more and more and more from on high. And you said the word yourself. The racist thing. The racist is a color barrier.
It is. It is.
And so when it's pushed that way, and even recently,
what you say is true. But also, I mean, and I push back on this. It is power. It is the power, okay?
That's right.
It is people that are in power. So you're a darker skinned person and you work for the Trump administration and you buy into this shit. It doesn't matter because you're going to do it. And that may make you doubly guilty, but you're guilty because they're doing it to these people.
Anybody a hall pass on it.
Because
anybody who engages
color.
in that is not getting a hall pass from it, Ron. Systematically. It mostly is what it mostly is.
It's the same thing, and we mentioned it before. It's it's all these white men that don't let people have abortion and blah blah blah. No, it isn't. 80 million women voted for Donald Trump twice. So as long as we want to divide it that way only, and there's some divisions necessary, it's the power process that's there. But anyway, so. That's a constant argument.
And it's the way that the immigration plays into all that is immigration for Trump was a good way to point at a common enemy, so that his group of people could band together and support him. And again, the goal is money. The goal is money and power. Right. So what did Trump said? What's going to be the easiest way that I can get a bunch of people to follow me? And it was by demonizing immigrants
and building a wall because he made Mexico pay for it. You know that, don't you? I mean, Mexico.
Right.
In fact, I saw pictures of that wall. It reaches from sea to shining sea. We're going to put that in the national anthem next, but. It's just all a joke.
It is. But what happened? Is Bob ultimately back?
Or no?
This is the best part of the story. So we're going to go to that.
So we get a call. I get a call from Bob's girlfriend, and we have a chat about Bob's situation. And I'm scratching my head as to why Bob was taken into custody, why they even think that expedited removal is appropriate for him. So we get to work on a federal lawsuit. Because, as I mentioned earlier, the judiciary within, the administrative judiciary within Department of Justice is still beholden to the administration, to President Trump. The federal district court judges are not. So a lot of our practice has evolved into federal lawsuits. That is, we are the petitioners. ICE is one of the respondents, and we filed a writ of habeas corpus, which is basically a release the person, not a direct translation, but requesting that Bob be released from immigration custody. We were working on that when we got multiple frantic calls from girlfriend, roommate, boss, loved ones, saying, Bob has reached out to us. They are deporting him today. So Adam Crayk, managing partner, bless his heart, bless Marty Jones' heart. She's one of the more experienced attorneys at the firm, and I pulled an all-nighter and filed that writ of habeas corpus with a motion for temporary restraining order in federal district court. That judge looked at that the next morning and set a 1 p.m. hearing for us, which we attended, and explained what was happening. And he said we requested briefing, but said you cannot deport Bob for 48 hours.
So now think about this. You just want to think about this. These folks jump on it when they find out that ICE is moving ahead of the game so that they can get him out of the country, and therefore maybe make it moot in the eyes of the law and lawyers. So then it's done. They jump on. This is why this story is so important for people to know about this great group of lawyers. This is lawyering at the highest character of the bar. It doesn't get better than this. They know what will happen. They jump on it. And the judge, who is not beholden to the administration, says, what?
And not to toot our own horns too hard, but I am very proud of our work on this case, and I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish in such a small amount of time. The judge said, you are not allowed to remove Bob. I'm going to take this under advisement. I want some briefing. We file our briefing, and the respondents, represented by the U.S. Attorney's Office, filed a brief saying, actually, we've looked into it. We think they're right. Which is unheard of.
So think about that. So what happens is the U.S. Attorney's Office that is supposed to pursue the interest of ICE in this matter, what they then do is say, no, they're right. Don't do it. Effectively, grant the writ of habeas corpus, which I have to do the Latin. I mean, it means it's in order to have the body,
right.
Which means bring the body here. Don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
You're to bring it to court, meaning the human being. And so then what happened?
Not even a day later, the judge granted the writ of habeas corpus, and didn't even, in a lot of our cases right now where we're doing writs of habeas corpus, the federal district court judge will require that the immigration judge hold a bond hearing. Not in this case. He said, Bob was originally released on his own recognizance. You're going to release him on his own recognizance again. We're going to make him whole as best we can, minus the multiple days of trauma and loss of his, freedoms. We're going to make him as whole as we can, release him now.
So what do you say to somebody that says, oh, this is all bullshit, man. I mean, he's here illegally, and God damn it, I mean, if he'd have done it right the first time, we wouldn't have to spend all this money in the courts. I've heard this stuff, for these people.
Their crimes.
They should have been.
He's here illegally, therefore he's a criminal.
Yeah, if they, we don't know what he was really doing. What's your answer to that?
The Constitution, which is what makes the United States what the United States is.
Has been.
Fair point. Provides already due process for all people on its soil. Immigration laws, even as strict as they're written, provides processes, and he was following to the best of his ability. The federal district court and the lawyers representing ICE's interests in that case admitted that nothing that he did was improper, and that what ICE had done by detaining him and trying to put him in expedited removal proceedings was improper. So we have a federal district court, not just a federal district court judge, because you can say, who knows what his politics are, but the actual assistant U.S. attorney signed off on it saying, no, you're absolutely right. This was all improper. He should never have been detained.
And again, as a lawyer, an honorable thing. A very honorable thing to do, because justice only works when people do the right thing and don't cheat, steal, and lie. We got a couple more things to do, but I do want to just follow up on this. And that is, when I took Bob, because he had to check in, there was an order he had to check in. He had to check in at 1 o'clock on a specific date. And I took him over there because I know the family, and they just wanted somebody to go with him. And we got there, and outside there's a guard box. And I really want to get to this, John, and just take a second. And we got there, and the guard, and his name is Dave, says, and you know him.
I do.
Dave says, and you could just see in his eyes, I'm going, uh-oh, a problem. He goes, look, they keep putting for people like Bob to come here at 1 o'clock. We don't do those hearings anymore at 1 o'clock, those check-ins. He's got to come in at 8. And here's what I saw. I saw fear engulf this kid, because he's going, in effect, they're screwing with me. We're gonna leave, and I'm gonna go to jail. Dave saw it and said, look, you're okay. Trust me. Come back tomorrow at 7:45. I open up the gate at 8 o'clock. If you're here at 7:45, I'll let them know. But they know already that they keep screwing this up. We were back the next day at 7:45. We got there. Dave was the gentleman that he was. We went in. And I need to say this. The people that we went in to the place with, they were very courteous and they were kind. They were decent people. And it means that it can be decent.
Right. Well, like I said last week, are we? I don't know where we are. We got
some more time.
I'm going to just kind of go back on one thing and I don't want to be misinterpreted. When was talking about the little bits of racism and how that affects our policy and who gets arrested and who doesn't. It's not just our country is very black and white. There's no two ways about it. And when I used it in the way context I did, certain white businessmen, certainly isn't contextual. It's a power thing. I get it. But that's the phrase that's often associated with that power bunch. Unlike my friend from northern Italy, I'm from southern Greece. So I do get asked on the street, ¿Cómo estás, bien? People, I've been standing next to we talked about it last week, I think. I've been standing next to the kid getting hauled away, La Migra, in Wendover when we worked together, and they took him away. And I was almost next, and that was 50 years ago, or dang near it. So I've been in kind of this, like, looking over my shoulder zone for a long, long time. I could be Bob, at least to the arrest point, and then I trust that something helped. But it doesn't always work that way. And, this white and black, it does come from on high. There's no two ways about it. Our president is pushing this argument. Fuentes, the guy from and the Proud Boys bunch, Megyn Kelly, she's on whatever channel she's on. She's always doing the white supremacy stuff. Stephen Miller, it's always about white supremacy. It's not about power in their context. They never bring that part up. It is about a racial barrier and a racial point. So I just thinking that brought us to me where we are today, and I don't know what we can add to that, but we saw it over the weekend in the Super Bowl. Big Bunny with Bad Bunny, people brought their own racisms and prejudices right into that in a heartbeat because they didn't want to understand that culture. And as long as we don't take those steps, man, we're in trouble.
Well, I mean, I certainly don't disagree with you on that. I'm unwilling anymore to just give people who are also of color, who join in that shit a walk.
Well, that's not happening in my seat, Ron. Just so you're clear about it.
I know,
not here.
And I understand that. But I think that's one of the problems. In fact, while we're here, we got a couple minutes. We can cut this out if necessary. Donald Trump got elected in part because of a lot of brown-skinned people and black-skinned people voted for him in this last election.
That's the biggest demographic he's losing.
And so one of the problems that I'm troubled with is overdoing the white racism thing because it's there. We all know it's there. We know the Klan and the Knights of the White Camellia, and that attitude still exists. But the people that are their acolytes that aren't Caucasian deserve to take their shots too. That's all I'm saying. And I know that you're not saying anything different than that. We do want to do one other thing. I want to mention something, and that is a couple things. Those of you that listen on Substack and those of you that don't, I would suggest that you go on Substack and pull up Sir Ian McKellen's
it's wonderful.
It's a wonderful thing.
It's a refugee speech.
It's a refugee speech, and it was actually written by Shakespeare, because I've checked on it. That is part of the book. It's called on Sir Edward Moore. It's
Sir
a play.
Thomas More.
Sir Thomas More. It's a play, but that was the chapter that was written on by William Shakespeare. It is believed. The other thing is that John wrote a great column for the Private Eye that comes out tomorrow, right?
Yeah, today.
Today.
Well, today's Wednesday, depending on when you listen to it.
Okay, yeah, but
Wednesday.
Yeah, it will come out on Wednesday of this week. Read the column because, again, it's a great John Saltas column, written only as he can do it. And it talks about these things and the periphery of them in a little bit different way, but it's brilliantly written and done it. And finally, what can we say?
Well, we need guys like John to be there because that's the last barriers. We keep on saying, like, oh, God, if the rule of law falls, we're doomed. If people give up in this notion that we can be better than the rest, this great experiment of democracy, and then we fail at it, what's the dang point?
Well,
and proven over and over again, these things do fall, right? It's just who survives it. And it doesn't have to fall. It doesn't have to. There's no line that says, oh, they only last 250 years, then they're over. That just kind of seems to be about the marker, but nothing definitively happens there. It's just like when things wear out. We're in a different era. And these things that we're letting happen, particularly on a racial lens, that it is true. We should have advanced way past that. Yeah. We should have. And we were getting past that, but that wasn't good enough for some people. And if you don't mind, I'm going to just go through the little bit of thing here, and it does revolve around this last week. Thank you, by the way, for the accolade on the column. maybe we should go fishing flies and stuff like that on the Provo River. But
well done.
Yeah, well, thank you. And this is leading into Bad Bunny, because I do want to talk about him for a second. And I want to talk about some Spanish words. So, Maya Angelou, Greek last name. I think we said this before. She married a Greek. They divorced. She kept a last name.
Yeah.
But she said, "You may forget what people say or do, but you will never forget how they made you feel." And that summarizes this past weekend really, really well for me, because what Bad Bunny did was about feeling.
Right.
And if you couldn't come away with that with a strong emotion, one way or the other, but at least seeing it, something's amiss, because you didn't need to know the Spanish words to know what he was doing. He was telling a beautifully woven story.
Right.
And as it began, I'm going, and I've been doing this, same as last year with Lamar Kendrick. I'm, who is this guy? What the hell's going on? Until I watched it and wrote a great story. And this one, as good, maybe who different cultures see it differently, but ultimately they had one opposing culture. They didn't like that one and they didn't like this one. But his show was a wonderfully choreographed storytelling piece. As a storyteller, I just admired the shit out of it, because from start to end, he didn't miss a beat. He put little nuances in. He picks up the kid at the wedding. There's just, if you watch it again, you'll see all the stuff you missed.
Right.
And then on top of how well it was filmed. And the contrast to that is what TPUSA put out there. County fair junk food of
lip sync,
and and Bad Bunny didn't lip sync a second, and poor Kid Rock, who is like, I grew up when I started country music 40-something years ago, covering it. I was there when Johnny Cash. I met Roseanne, Chris Christopherson, the rebels, the anti-establishment people of then were the true country people. They were
the Man in
Black, all of it, and they would be aghast. They would absolutely be with Bad Bunny. And yet, country has devolved into this Kid Rock thing, and a guy singing about catching fish in 3/4 time on stage in a Las Vegas chumpy casino setting against what was going on in the Super Bowl. 13 minutes. It was not even close. And it was just a beautifully done show. Hats off to Bad Bunny. Hats off to the Puerto Rican people. We grew up with some in Bingham.
Yep.
And
first love of my life was Helen Santos.
It was just an incredibly well done piece of storytelling, and people who objected to it without even watching it, you lost. You'll always be lost.
I'm not big on the Super Bowl halftime shows. I did watch
Up with People. Come on,
I did watch it, and it grabbed me. I mean, I watched the whole thing. I mean, there are certain aspects of it that didn't grab me a lot, but
they grabbed him because you can say that's what people didn't like. They didn't like the crotch grab, or they didn't like the twerking guy, whatever.
I didn't even go there. I mean, there were certain parts of it where I got lost. But when I realized that he was telling a story from the beginning, that this was a kind of in a sense a comic book in the great way that we all liked comic books. This was a passage through who he was and who his people were, and yet who all of us are. And I found that incredibly compelling. But my prejudice against halftime shows are basically that they take me away from the refrigerator.
Yeah, well, there's a people in MAGA are saying 1.6 million people tuned out at halftime.
But that always happens.
Whoa. The other side of it is the real truth. That means that more people tuned in at halftime than actually cared about the game.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's good.
That's what that says. So people couldn't wait to see Bad Bunny, and he didn't let anybody down that was a big Bunny fan, and he created a fan in me. Not necessarily go buy his. I'm not going to tune that music on. I can't wiggle. I can't dance like that. But I can feel the joy, and I can still see the first Puerto Ricans I really ever knew were the Sharks in West Side Story.
Oh yeah.
And I loved that, and Rita Moreno and all that kind of stuff, and it was the most beautiful thing in my life to see it at the Villa Theater, 1964, whatever. It's like, what a culture.
There. I didn't go there. That's great.
So it's like, it's our culture, it's family, it's religion, it's food, it's merriment, it's weddings, it's sad, it's happy, all at once, and everything all at once. And you got to be a part of it. Piragua, just to have the icy drink, stuff like that is cultural. And every bit of that was cultural. And we can't let sight of what he was saying was the American story.
Of course. That's what this podcast is about. Even though you put down my Northern Italian and I guess by nature Croatian heritage, that's who we all are. Okay? That is our story. Bad Bunny told our story. And the point of it is that, and this, I'll give it to me. I did watch it. I wasn't going to watch it because I don't like the shows. I mean, that's just who I am. I'm glad that I got berated into watching it by one of my grandchildren who told me that I had to watch it because it was going to be good. And that grandchild was 100% correct. We can't forget it. We all can forget it. If it isn't what we know, we sometimes turn our eyes away from it, not out of racism or hate. It's just that at some point we get lazy.
Well,
and laziness is something that America has been for a while. And I'm hoping that all of us are less lazy and more attuned to what's going on. You get the last word.
Well, I'm just going to say, I've got neighbors in the kids are high school age. They speak 3 languages fluently. And we had a whole bunch of Americans tuned out this past weekend because it's in Spanish.
Yeah.
Our friend here, John, you speak Spanish.
I do.
Where'd you do your missionary work?
Chile. Viña del Mar, Chile.
Whoa. Can you translate this for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to
I'll
make
give it a
sure.
try.
Well, because these people don't like Spanish, right? What does the word mar a lago mean?
The sea next to the ocean.
Is that true? It's
sorry.
A lago.
Sea next to the lake.
Lake, yeah.
Sea next to the lake. Isn't that the name? It is, isn't it? Am I mistaken?
Yeah, no, I think you got it right.
That's right.
Trump's. I think that he should score some points there for staying Los Angeles.
The Angels.
The City of the Angels.
Colorado.
Colored. Or of color.
This color red. Yeah, okay, it is actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's San Francisco. We have Spanish words
in
our
Francis.
St. Francis. It's in our culture. It's part of us already. Why?
Santa Clara, Utah. St. Clair.
Yeah. So we have the Spanish words there to look at. Here's the last one. What's the Greek word that I would speak to this? It's enotitos. I said that wrong and too fast. Inomenos or enotita, which means united or unity. That's what we should be striving for. And this little thing that was on Threads, it says Trump is so threatened by unity, he has to attack anyone promoting it from Bad Bunny to our Olympians because dividing America is the only way he stays in power.
Bingo.
What a truism.
That is the truth.
And the thing of it is when you said it, who his support was, it is true. But he keeps dividing and dividing. And the mathematician would tell you that's an infinite case because you can divide and you never run out of things to divide. That's the game he plays. It's not so simple as dividing a half. It's a half of a half of a half of a half of so on until you just keep it going.
And our response needs to be the opposite, right? Unifying against the hatred, against the malice, against the mean-spiritedness, uniting, and we're seeing it. And I'm really grateful for it, and I hope that momentum continues.
Sometimes those that want to divide and conquer run into people that don't let them happen, like John.
Don't let it happen? Oh, like John?
Don't let
Absolutely.
it happen, like John.
No, John, how many languages do you speak?
Just 2.
Just 2.
Yeah.
Well, it's 50% more than my one. I speak 2 other languages poorly.
You speak Greek and you speak some Spanish.
I can get a taxi cab and I can order in my favorite, in any Greek or Spanish restaurant, Mexican restaurant, I can get by. But after that, I can't talk politics or anything. I can't get real conversant. But yeah, I can get by.
You can do it with your hands. Tell people goodbye, and you get the last word.
That was the last word. I don't have anything other to say than, when I have to fill out what race are you? They don't have brown, man. They got white, black, or that's it. So
I put none of their business.
I do too, but didn't used to have that option. So I'm white, Ron. Look at me.
Well, you are considered white, and but you're kind of gray. You got to work on your color. All right, everybody, peace and love for the next time, huh?
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you.